Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creature Comforts, a spinoff series of the Straight Chillin' podcast. I'm your host, Soju, and on this show, we love to explore the fringes of horror and all things horror adjacent. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the 1974 film The Conversation, which was written, directed, and produced by Francis Ford Coppola, and actually is the film that came out right after The Godfather for him. And it's kind of interesting because this is labeled as a mystery thriller. And I definitely think there's some really strong horror elements in this film. You have conspiracy, you have paranoia, you have plans of murder. And it kind of reminded me of some of those like Alfred Hitchcock films that are not like strongly horror films, but are definitely discussed in the realm of horror. And it's weird because I had never heard of this before and came through it in a non-horror kind of way. And when I watched it, I was like, yeah, it really kind of reminds me of those Hitchcock films. Why is this not kind of discussed in the realm of horror like those are? And so, yeah, I was just really surprised by it. I think it's kind of an underseen film, especially within the realms of horror. But before we get too far into it, let's go ahead and meet our guest for tonight. And making his first appearance on Creature Comforts from the Don't Believe the Hype podcast and the Liquor and Lyrics podcast. Welcome, Dan Holt.
Hello, hi. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining me.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well tonight. I've got my mustard colored mug, tonight to match the 70s,
70s, yeah. And I've got a mustard colored hat, so there you go.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
all
There we
going on.
go. We're matching tonight. Yeah.
I did contemplate getting the flares out, but I thought no, it's too far, I think, really.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Dan, you have a very special kind of tie to this movie, a kind of specialty called in the specialist for a certain reason. We'll get into it a little bit later. But first, I did want to give you an opportunity to let all the listeners know about your individual podcast. What are they about and where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm worrying now people are expecting me to be like Gene Hackman's son or Francis Ford Coppola's nephew or something, but
You can pull it off. Yeah.
I can pull it off. No one will know. No, so yeah, I have a podcast, Don't Believe the Hype, which is an Arctic Monkeys fan podcast, and it's quite an in-depth Arctic Monkeys fan podcast. It's not for the average listener, let's say. It is quite a in-depth podcast where we dissect every song from the discography. We've just started our third season. The first episode is going to be coming out on the January 31st, where we start with the Humbug album, start with My Propeller. It's going to be very, very interesting, and you can find that on Spotify, and Apple Music as well. But if you want to get to all the links for that, then you can go to linktree/Arctic Monkeys podcast, and that'll have all the platforms we're on and all the social medias as well. So you can follow that. And I also co-host a podcast called Liquor and Lyrics, which is a comedy podcast where we take a song every week, a popular song that has some terrible lyrics, let's say, and generally, we try not to do anything stupid or cheesy on there. We try and keep it to actual songs that are good songs generally, but have poor lyrics. So we've done Grease Lightning, we've done
Spice Girls.
Yeah, we did. It was enlightening to do Justin Timberlake and people like that, and some very interesting chats have come from that. And we also, with that, it's Liquor and Lyrics. So we have a drink every week that ties in, or we attempt to tie it in to, sometimes tenuously, to the song. So we'll start the pod, we'll discuss the drink, and we'll have the recipe out and that, and then so you can drink along, and then we'll jump into the lyrics and dissect them, but in a hopefully amusing way. And we've done about 12 episodes, 13 episodes of that now. We took a little break, but we're going to be back on Valentine's Day, or the day before Valentine's Day, Tuesday 13th, with a love song to kick off the new series. And then I won't say what it is. And then we're going to be doing such songs next series as Pina Colada is one of the big ones that we're looking forward to the most of the next series. And yeah, and we're also going to be starting a YouTube channel soon where we're going to be doing little mini versions of the episodes on video for people as well. But you can find all the links to that if you want to come over and listen at Linktree again, but Linktree/Liquor and Lyrics. And they'll be all on there.
And I just got to say, personally, I do listen to both of those shows, like, religiously. I do find as soon as the new episodes are out, I'm on them. And I will say, though, now it's really hard for me to say, and this is very, very biased, but I feel like if anyone has even any little interest in Arctic monkeys, they should definitely check out your podcast, because I think
Oh,
it would
okay.
make them like super fans afterwards, even,
Oh, well, that's very nice
So
of you to say.
yeah, so
I
I've really enjoyed, that, but also that is a huge bias because, I have been a huge Arctic Monkeys fan. So take that with a grain of salt, guys.
Yeah, I think we kind of felt like you feel like it's for the nerdy connoisseur is what we think. But no, generally, I
Yeah.
mean, we have people like you, the ones we like to hear that you from a different country, you have a different experience, and you can listen along to us to Manchester guys talking about our favorite band. It's cool, but yeah, we're trying to do that. It would be great to get some new listeners on that. And with Liquor and Lyrics, we're trying to grow that into. We feel it has the concept and the chops to grow into a bigger comedy podcast, hopefully on the out there in the world. So yeah, come and listen. Come and
Yeah,
listen.
cool.
Come and
Awesome.
join us for a little while.
Well, thanks for joining me today. Today, we are going to be talking about The Conversation. This is a film from 1974. It is an American mystery thriller film written, produced, and directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and stars Gene Hackman, Harrison Ford, Cindy Williams, Robert Duvall is in here. And the premise is this is about a paranoid, secretive surveillance expert has a crisis of conscience when he suspects that the couple he is spying on will be murdered. So we still haven't quite revealed, how you're kind of tied to this film, Dan. But so I wanted to ask you the first question before we get into the spoiler territory. But
Mm-hmm.
what does this movie mean to you, and would you recommend people check it out?
So, do you want me to reveal the link in
You can,
terms of
yeah,
the
you can,
band?
yeah,
Yeah.
you could go ahead and
So,
get it.
because
Yeah.
there's a couple of things with this. So the first one is that this was um, it was a film festival that Arctic Monkeys, the aforementioned Arctic Monkeys, did around their sixth studio album in 2018, Tranquility Base Hotel Casino. They did a kind of a little mini film festival of films that had an influence on the album, and it was like a pop up thing, wasn't it, that people could go to.
Mm-hmm.
And The Conversation was one of those films. So it's interesting to watch it and see what they claim to be influenced by on this. But also from a personal level with this film, I first saw it about 13 years ago. And
Oh, really? Okay.
I made a film. I made a film when I was younger that I wrote, a low budget film that was about a uh, couple of flatmates. It was ahead of its time, perhaps, because it was called Isolation. It was about the government making people stay indoors because of an event that had happened. So it was 12 years too early.
Wow. Whoa.
I know, I was ahead of my
That's
time.
going to resurface now. Damn,
The,
that's
the,
going to be a cool
product,
film.
the production companies wish they'd bought it when the pandemic had ever hit. But it was about that, and I had to figure out how to make the camera be interesting and the scenes interesting fluidly with the camera. And this was one of the films that got recommended to me to create that. And I will discuss as we get into it why that is, perhaps, that I think. And I used a lot of influence from this for the camera movements and the editing and things like that and the score. So that it means a lot in terms of that from an influence for me, which is why when you messaged me about it, it was a cool link there. But I would recommend people check this out. I think this film excels at putting you into the mindset of the main character. I think that's where it's strongest, and feeling just as paranoid and unsettled as he seems to be in his life throughout the film, because I know I felt unsettled the whole way through this, watching it again. And I think it does a great job of capturing that paranoid feeling in it. So I would really recommend it.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
it's
So
Francis Ford
this,
Coppola. So
that's what I was just about to say is so this is a first time watch for me, and it was tied into the pop-up little film festival that they did for their album release. And just to kind of give some context about this film, so this was released right, maybe like 2 years out. It was the next film to come out after The Godfather, and in between The Godfather and The Godfather 2 release for Francis Ford Coppola. And then after that, I think the very next film after that was Apocalypse Now. So this is,
All right, aren't they? They're all
yeah.
right.
So he had a crazy run of movies. And I will say, for all the people saying, like, oh, those are his, big famous ones for sure, that this, I feel like this deserves to be on that kind of level, honestly. It was surprisingly good to me. And I was like, I can't believe that I'd never seen this film or really even heard it talked about much. So I was really impressed. And then that even got me more curious about, whoa, how did this, have some specific influence over the latest Arctic Monkeys albums?
I think,
because unfortunately, you guys haven't got to those yet. So I couldn't go to you for reference.
no, no. There's a for us. There's a chat of will we ever get to that point? It seems like when we took on this task, it was bigger than. But no, we love it. But no, yeah, I agree. And also, what's interesting there when you say films like Godfather and it's in between that and Apocalypse Now, it's even more impressive to make a film like this be so good because it's not as flashy or as showy as those films. It's about a war. You've got a lot going on. This is a very low key film, but it's so masterfully made that it's you can tell it's a director just at his absolute peak, a part of his powers at the time, and being able to make this as interesting as it is. Because I think, as we'll get into, like, really not a lot happens in this film generally, like, but also at the same time, so much happens in this film as well. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's certainly a lot more low key than Godfather or Apocalypse Now, but it's equally like masterfully crafted, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I should say just before it goes out of my head that there is another link in that Francis Ford Coppola's son, Roman Coppola, directed Teddy Picker, the Arctic Monkeys video.
That's right. Yeah. And we just talked about that not too long ago. Yeah. I remember that.
So it's another link in there. Yeah.
That must have been awesome for the band, who respects this guy's films and have, his son come in and direct your music video. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Especially
amazing.
so early in their career. Yeah.
Yeah. Very early. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I am excited to talk about this. So let's go ahead and drop the spoiler warning and we'll get into it.
Spoiler warning.
All right. So the first segment we are going to get into is our coulda, woulda, shoulda, which is designed to focus on the horror adjacent nature of this film, which is why we do this show, or why I was able to justify starting this spinoff show from our horror podcast. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. The first one is going to be, what subgenre of horror could you put this film into if you were forced to?
Psychological thriller is really where I would put this into. I mean, because the psychological element of this is pretty intense in terms of that, and is where a lot of the terror comes from as well, especially by the end of the film. I think it's particularly that kind of bit at the end when he's ripping up the floorboards and he doesn't know if there's listening devices in there. Like, that is a terrifying thought, isn't it? It really is. It got into my head a little bit. I was like, wow, can you imagine being that preparing for that and after that insane? But yeah, I think that's where I would put it. Hopefully
nice.
that is a subgenre for it.
No, yeah, absolutely. And I probably even picked one that's not as, like, I don't know, that's probably not as recognized, or I just like created it myself. But I would say like conspiracy horror in the same vein because you're right. A lot of it is coming from this secretive nature, and also to like this unreliable narrator too. You're not really sure what's actually happening, just like he's not actually sure what's actually. So part of it's conspiracy. Is it this happening to him or not, or whatever? Is he just paranoid? That's
where the genius lies, isn't it? Is you're completely in his head and you don't know. You can't even trust him. Like, you're as lost as him, but you may be even more lost than him because you can't even trust him. So exactly. It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. Definitely psychological thriller, I'd say, or conspiracy thriller. Yeah, which I think some of the films I'd recommend from this would fall under conspiracy thriller, whether that's a real subgenre or
Yeah,
one you've
yeah.
made up either way.
Probably just made it up. Yeah. Well, cool. So for the next one, what one element would you change in this film to make it more of a horror film? Straight up.
I think more of the physical peril for him. So it got me thinking about a film that I think is a bit similar, which is you've probably seen, I'd imagine you've seen Rear Window.
Oh yeah.
Um, it's the same sort of psychological thriller horror, where you again feel that paranoia, what's going on. You're in the main character's mindset. But I feel in that film, you do feel that there's potentially a physical threat coming for him as well.
Hmm.
I didn't feel as much throughout this. There was a part when he realized that it was them that killed. Yeah, we'd done the spoiler one, and I panicked then for a second.
Yeah,
When I
yeah. No,
realized it
you're
was
good.
them
You're good. You're
that,
good.
when I realized it was them that did it, I did panic that he was going to get killed once they realized he knew. But obviously they went down a different route. But other than that, I didn't ever feel that he was in any danger
Yeah.
at all. So I think for a horror, if I was in his mindset and then I thought he was going to get hurt, then that would make me scared, probably.
Scared for your
But
side,
yeah,
yeah, because
yeah, for
he's
myself, yeah.
yeah, and even when there are tense moments against him, you're still questioning, should he actually feel this way? Is it
Yeah.
just his over the top personality that's making, so it does detach you in that way,
Yeah.
even if there is a threat against him. Yeah.
Yeah, because also I didn't like him. I have
Yeah,
to
well,
say,
yeah,
I
that's
didn't like
yeah, you're
anyone in
not
this
worried
film.
about
So
him. Yeah.
yeah, so I didn't really care about him, which isn't a slight on the film. Although they
Oh
could
yeah,
have, I don't know. I mean, I don't know really because I suppose when I think about something like I don't know, Succession, where I shouldn't really like those people, but yet I
mhm,
really like feel sorry for Kendall all the time. I shouldn't because they're terrible
mhm.
people. So maybe it would have been better if I did like him a little bit, and then I could have felt a bit more fear for him. But maybe that was the point because it made me fearful for myself, which was weird because I
Mm.
wasn't in the. It made me paranoid about something I wasn't involved in. So I guess that's more of a masterstroke. I suppose
Yeah.
from Francis. I don't want to give tips to Francis Ford Coppola about the
Yeah, hey,
characters in
you
the
know
film.
what you should have done?
Quick note for you, Francis. I made a
Yeah,
film
and
once, Francis.
well, one thing I was thinking about to kind of add that, even kind of detached from the other one, is they mention this a lot in the film. So if we wanted to ramp up some of the violence, which we get towards the end, but if we wanted to have it more kind of sprinkled throughout the film, one thing that
Yeah.
we could do is they constantly reference this situation that happened to Harry before, where
Mm.
he was doing like a surveillance job, and he turned the tapes in, and because of that, some people got murdered. So even
Yeah.
if you were playing with his again psychological mind of how he's viewing things, even if he had these dreams or flashbacks, or you did see some actual scenes of that actually
Mm.
playing out, could
Yeah.
add in some of more tense moments and why he's like looking around the corner and stuff like that. So yeah,
I
just think of
agree.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. More sprinkling that in and maybe more of the sort of end game stuff with the hotel room because I really like some of what they did there, especially with the toilet and the blood code. Like, I
Mhm.
really think that's pretty cool. But yeah, maybe more odd stuff because they did the kind of dream stuff, which I thought it was um was okay, but I think you're right. From flashbacks to the thing that they kept hinting at had scarred him perhaps and made him not want someone to get hurt would have been a lot better. Yeah,
Mhm.
because the film was but then again I kind of feel like I guess I didn't know. It was kind of a tightrope of I was so unsettled throughout the film that I
Mhm.
kind of maybe was expecting him to get hurt. So maybe that was the point. He didn't. But the whole way through the film, I
Yeah.
was kind of tense that something might happen to him, I suppose, because I was like, where's this? Because I'm trying to think back to when I first watched it, but I had forgotten it. It's been over a decade. So, but I was kind of like, okay, this is making me very unsettled. I don't quite know what's going to happen. So maybe that was the point, was that nothing actually did happen to him. He was
Yeah, it's
just
just like
it.
part of that's psychological horror too, because you're
Yeah, yeah.
waiting to die. I was just this is a weird connection, but I was just recently reading, there was a guy who in Japan who set fire to an animation studio 4 years ago, and it like killed 39 people, and they just gave him the death penalty in Japan. And the
Wow.
way that Japan does the death penalty is you have no idea when the sentence will be carried out.
No.
So yeah, so you're just like, wait, you have no idea what day is going to be your last. And so in that kind of way, that's kind of
Oh my God.
terrifying. Yeah.
That's the most terrifying. Oh my word. That
Yeah,
is
getting
viscerally
dark. Yeah, getting dark
terrifying.
here. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, it's brilliant. I like it, I guess. If you kill someone, you deserve it, I suppose. But that is
Yeah.
Terrifying. Well, you one day
Yeah.
you just oh, so they kind of just let you go. Are you in prison, and then one
You
day
are in prison. Yeah. You
right?
just,
They're
oh,
not just
there's
like you
no
can go
set
back out in the
day.
world, and
Yeah.
one day
Yeah.
you'll die.
No. Yeah. We're going to get you. Yeah.
And do they? How do they? Do you know how they? Like in my
I
head, they
think,
just pop him in the
they
back of the head. As
hang. I think they hang them
so they just grab
still.
you and hang you
I
like
think
suddenly.
so.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
God, jeez.
But yeah, so weird tangent on that one.
Yeah, I guess that's just like real life, I suppose, in a way. You
Well,
don't know.
yeah, I
You
guess
don't
so.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, except
The
you know it is
horse.
coming. Even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, more intense. Yeah.
So I
Anyway,
do
yeah.
think that is horrifying in a way for sure. To end on that kind of note of like, you don't know, maybe we'll come get you, maybe we won't. I don't know. So
That'd make a
good.
cool film, wouldn't it? A
Yeah.
film about a character that was waiting for that in prison, not knowing when it
Mhm.
would come in.
Exactly. Yeah. And then probably it would end like after 45 minutes and you're like, that's the end? What the fuck? I thought this was going to be a full length movie. But yeah. Okay. So to wrap up kind of the horror discussion, the last question I wanted to ask is what one element? Oh, no, no, nope. The last one is if people like this movie, what horror film should they check out?
Okay, so I guess I've got a main three that I would go for, and the main one that I'm going to recommend is a film called Number One Barbarian Sound Studio. Have you
Aha.
seen this? Have you
I
seen that?
have not seen this, but one of the other guys on the podcast really likes this movie.
So it's quite a funny story. So when I watched this, it's about to not give too much away, but it's about a British sound engineer who does Foley for horror films, and he gets taken over to Italy to make a horror film for them, do the Foley sound, but something's quite not right, and he's very paranoid, and everyone's speaking Italian around him. He doesn't speak the language. He's making this film. Something's going on. It's all weird. Is it a film? Is it real? What he's editing? Is it not a horror film? Is it like
Mm.
a weird fetish film or something? That's kind of the vibe of it. It's conspiracy. It's very similar to this in terms of the use of sound and rewinding
Mhm.
tapes, and because it's set in the 70s, I think, as well. So very influenced by this, I would imagine.
Cool.
Um, I had a weird experience with that film because it was like the statute of limits are up, I think, but I torrented this when I was younger to watch
Oh,
it.
shit.
So I torrented, but what I didn't realize was the torrent didn't have it had no subtitles on it, the torrent for the
Mm.
Italian subtitles. So when I watched
Ah,
it, I thought that was on purpose in the film. I thought, oh, they've made you so that you like the
so
character, you don't know
you
what's
don't
going
know
on.
it.
And
Yeah.
then I caught it on TV a few years later, and it did have subtitles. So I just made the film that way, which made it cooler, I guess. But I loved it, yeah. And if you like this, you would love that. I would imagine.
Cool. It's moving to the top of my list now because it's one that has been mentioned a lot, but I've never
If you like
gotten around to
this,
watch it. Yeah, cool. That sounds like awesome. I also like the idea. I wonder if I can turn the subs off because I like the idea of not knowing, what they're saying too, but at least for the first
yeah.
watch.
I did the same thing with Captain Phillips as well. The first time I watched that, I turned it down. It had no subtitles, so I was like, "Wow, I'm really in the mindset of the captain here with the Somalis, not knowing what's going on." That is a cool way to watch it.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
um, but I would also recommend a German film called The Lives of Others, which is again, it's about spies and listening devices and listening to people and not quite sure what's going on. And it's
Hmm,
very similar to this as well, but it's a really well made. It's probably one of the best international films that I've ever seen.
cool.
It's a really cool film, so you can check that out.
All
And
right.
in terms of, there's a film, a British film. It's called Kill List. I'm not sure if you've ever, and
Maybe.
it's a British film by a cool British director called Ben Wheatley that does kind
Okay.
of odd stuff, and it's a film about two hitmen that get given a list of people to kill, and that's all I'll say. But
Okay.
it gets very weird and very trippy. And when the end blows your mind, and then when you Google what the film's about, you'll go, "Oh my god, I can't believe it was about that." And then you'll watch it again, and you'll go, "Oh my god." So yeah, I would recommend that because that's got in relation to this, it's got that kind of not quite knowing what's going on, paranoia. What's this job we've been told to do? We've got to do this. What's going to be the consequences, etc. Type thing to it. So yeah.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah, I have not seen this. I just pulled it up and it looks awesome. And it's on Tubi right now. So anyone
oh,
listening, if you want to check it out on free for on Tubi, it's there right now. So I
yeah.
will probably be watching one or two of those tonight, honestly.
Excellent. Yeah, and then if you do like that, check out any of Ben Wheatley's films because he's a
Okay.
really cool. I think he did do an American film. He's kind of made his way to America. I think I can't remember what the film was called, but yeah, he's a very cool director.
Cool. Thank you for those recommendations. I am always looking for those obscure. That's awesome. Kill list. Yep. Top of my list now. Well, yeah. So one that you mentioned earlier, I had on my list too, is Rear Window from 1954, Alfred Hitchcock. So yeah, those
Oh,
paranoia vibes. Are there too, and it's kind of that like, is it, isn't it, and stuff going on in that. And that's it's crazy because that is considered like a kind of horror classic. Of course Alfred Hitchcock's attached to it. It's got more of a horror vibe anyways, but it's crazy that it got similar kind of feelings to them to this film. But I had never heard of this film, so very interesting. Another one is a very recent film. This came out in 2022, and it is called Kimmy, and it has a similar kind of premise where it is about a woman who a younger woman who has faced some kind of like trauma earlier in her life, and so she's kind of become a bit of a recluse, but she works for a company that's essentially kind of like an Amazon or a Google, where they have these devices in your house, like Hey Siri or Hey Google or whatever,
okay,
the
okay.
little device. And her job is to kind of go through some audio recordings to know any kind of problems, like where somebody said, hey, I want you
Mhm.
to turn the music up, and it doesn't understand, and it makes a mistake, so they can fix the coding. And in one instance, she thinks maybe she heard like something bad like going on, so she's like trying to
Oh,
report it maybe to the police,
ooh,
but she's scared to leave her own apartment because of her trauma and stuff, and she's not
ooh.
exactly sure how to handle it with her company. So yeah, that was so very similar but also very recent film.
I am going to check
Very
that
cool.
out. That sounds exactly my cup of tea, as we say.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. So
that
Kimmy,
was up there.
excellent. Wow. Yeah. Excellent.
And the other one I kind of thought of was maybe like Zodiac from
Ah,
2007, because it's got kind of some of that like mystery stuff too, the uncertainty of it. And also too, we'll talk about later, as far as soundtrack goes, I believe the guy who worked on this soundtrack also did some work for Zodiac as well.
oh,
So
really? I love that
yeah.
film so
Yeah.
much. I
Yeah.
mean, I have a slight man crush on Jake Gyllenhaal as it is, so I did just have a like without going into depth, just a
Mhm.
couple of films that I had as a kind of a standby. It was my main
Yeah,
recommendation that I
sure.
broke down. I had as from a horror point of view, I thought this film reminded me a bit of The Thing and
Yeah.
Rosemary's Baby and Jacob's Ladder. If you've ever
Mhm.
seen that,
Mhm.
from a psychological thriller, I thought you could, if you like this, then Memento,
Mhm.
The Game, very much
Oh,
reminds
yeah,
so very
definitely.
similar vibe.
Another I
Uh,
think that's another David Fincher one. Didn't
it
did
is,
he do
yeah,
the
it is,
game?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, he
yeah.
did, yeah. Clute, which is an interesting film from the 70s as
I've never
well.
seen that one.
Yeah, that's a really yeah, interesting one. I'll just say that.
Okay.
70s horror film. And from a paranoia point of view, it kind of gave me vibes of The Machinist.
Mm.
I don't know if you've ever seen Take Shelter.
No.
That's a cool film, but it's got Michael Shannon in it, and it's about a
Oh,
guy
sure.
who's convinced that a storm's coming and it's going to be the apocalypse, and he's paranoid about that. So the paranoia element, that's an interesting movie. And then there's a film that I don't think you will have seen, which it's a low budget indie British film from last year called All My Friends Hate Me. And to give you a quick summary and how it applies to this, it's a film basically about social anxieties, but it turns our social anxieties into horror. He's a guy who goes away with some old friends to a mansion for a weekend, and but he starts to think that everyone hates him and they're trying to kill him, but you
Cool.
don't know whether it's in his head or not. So yeah, that's they all remind me of it. And if you really want to trip out, there's a film called Fear X that I can't explain to you in any way, except a man's wife dies and he starts seeing stuff. That's a Nicholas Winding Refn film. And if you know anything about Nicholas Winding Refn films, then you'll know that it's going to be pretty mad. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
I'd recommend that as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Good. All right. Well, everyone's got a long list now of
Long
movies they
list.
need to check out. That's awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I am adding all of those to my list. Very
You
good.
might not appreciate Fair X because it might wig you out, but yeah,
Was
other
with
than that,
Jacob's Ladder's a good call though too.
Mm.
That unreliable narrator and like what's going
Mm.
on, and you're going on that journey kind of with them. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah, I
call.
really want to see that Kimmy though. It sounds like a modern version of this,
Yeah, yeah,
basically a
very
21st
yeah,
century.
similar kind of idea. Yeah. Well, good. So we covered the horror aspects. We'll probably dip back into some of it with some of the other aspects of the film, but I kind of wanted to start off the main discussion talking a little bit more about Arctic Monkeys and how this kind of ties in, since this was kind of like my exposure to this film. And as
Mhm.
you kind of mentioned before, just to give a little bit more information, they did do pop-ups about a week before the album was released in May 2018. They were in cities Sheffield, New York, Paris, Berlin, Tokyo, and Sydney. So those were the cities that got them. I did read an article. They had like a little kind of merch booth. They kind of decked the theaters out in the kind of Art Deco style. They were all the staff was like wearing matching outfits that kind of like matched I think the
All
four
right.
stars out of five video and stuff
Oh,
like that.
nice. Yeah.
So yeah, it was like a full experience, and they showed five different films. This was the second film that was shown. Some of the films, or some of the other directors that were in this were there was a film by Paul Thomas Anderson that was shown, a film by Martin Scorsese, which I think is actually a documentary that was shown. And yeah, there was, I think, like an Italian film and maybe a French film that was shown as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So super jealous that I was not able to attend that.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, so talking about, so it came out to promote Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, but also I feel like there are probably still some lingering ties, maybe some stronger ties to their most recent album, The Car, which came
Mm.
out in late 2022. So what are some songs or some references, some of the aesthetics that you think tie Arctic Monkeys to this?
Well, it's interesting you say the car because when I because what influenced me when I made that film years ago was the way in the film, the way the camera in one room follows him. He'll walk out of shot and the camera will follow him rather than an edit. Let's say the camera very much floats around, and it
Mm-hmm.
has these zooms, especially when they're in the park at the start, and it does these kind of long zooms on people, like a spy, camera.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I first saw the cover of the Car album, the Arctic Monkeys album, and I saw that shot from far away with the car, genuinely, this is a huge coincidence that you asked me to do this. When I saw that a couple of years ago, the first thing that popped into my head was the conversation. That was the first thing I thought of because it just
Mm-hmm.
that long shot of it is a very that image just invokes spying, like it's like someone with a telescopic lens,
Yeah.
down on a camera in there. So I kind of got that aesthetic vibe from the album cover in this film straight away. But I guess aesthetics as well. Did you notice that? And this just shocked me when I was watching it. There's a bit in the film when they have a party in a warehouse. It's quite a long part of the
Yeah.
film. And Fredo from The Godfather, the character Stan, I think he's called in this. He jumps on a red scooter and starts riding it round the room. And
Yeah.
in the Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino video, Alex rides the exact same scooter, doesn't he?
He does.
Around,
Yeah. Around
yeah.
the hotel or the casino. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was really cool. I was like, oh, that can't be a coincidence. That has to be on purpose. I guess the 70s tape recorders and stuff in the videos as well. I think it's certainly influenced the style a lot in there because you get a lot of the things that are behind you now, those big 70s
Mm-hmm.
tape things in
Yeah. The
there.
reel to reel like tape. Yeah. Players.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
you get a lot of that. I think the decor, but there was a bit where Harrison Ford, who, by the way, you forget, well, what a stud back in the day.
Dude. Yeah. I was like, man, Harrison Ford is young and
He
he's,
was
yeah.
hot.
Yeah.
He was cruising around Hollywood, yeah, doing some bits. But there's a bit when he follows him to a conference, and then he's at that weird tech
Mm-hmm.
spy thing,
Yeah.
and Harrison Ford's like sat in a back room on a couch, and there's a mirror behind him, and I just got instant decor vibes of like the Tranquility video in that room.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I should say, it reminded me a lot of the spaceship stuff on 2001 in Kubrick as well. A lot of the decor in this. But what I don't know is look, it's the Tranquility era is very 70s inspired. So it might not necessarily be this film that it's cribbing with that, but just cribbing 70s
The
decor
style.
as it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it might not necessarily be linked, but obviously they included this film in the film festival. So,
Mhm.
um, but yeah, I think in terms of the decor and the thought, that was kind of what I thought in terms of songs,
Mhm.
certain tracks. I kind of got so for me, the song, the car, has always
Mhm.
felt like a song about a spy, even though I don't know why. Is there a lyric? There's something in there that's putting me. I think it's the guitar work and the. I've always got like 70s spy from that song, and I don't know why.
Mhm.
Am I just insane? Have you ever
I
got a
was
vibe from?
thinking, so I had the same thought about that one, and because I was like, I need to look at the lyrics really closely in these two songs. Was
Yeah.
Mr. Schwartz as well.
Yes. Yeah.
I was kind of feeling the same vibe, where it's on. There are other songs that I'll reference that are about the music of how the soundtrack of this kind of like reminded me,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
in just the feeling, not in like how the song is constructed, but a feeling of an unsettlingness in the music, like what you're referencing with
Yes.
the. So it seems chill, it seems good, but there's like something about it that's just not scary, but just kind of unsettling. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think actually now I think of it, there is a reference to spies, isn't there, in the car in the lyrics? Is it something in a cafe or I can't remember what
Let's
the
see if
lyric
I wrote it
exactly is now.
down. I did write down several lyrics. I'll take a look at them real quick.
But I would. Yeah, I think in terms of it did lyrically and stylistically get me more towards the car than Tranquility. I think the soundtrack, as you said, we'll talk about in a bit,
Mhm.
reminded me more of Tranquility, a bit influence there. But I'd say the 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 narrative reminded me of the Car album more in places like Mr. Schwartz and the Car specifically,
Mhm.
like you said. Yeah, that feeling of unsettledness does always get me with the Car, and it's funny because it's probably my least favorite song on the album as it stands now.
Mhm.
But that's just because well, it's, we won't bore everyone with why that is, but this is my podcast for that. But but no, it does have that unsettling feeling to it. But I think that's why it disappoints me that it doesn't lean into that more. I think that song, and that's why I'm a bit down
It
on it a
could
bit.
be.
But it does give me this film vibes. Yeah, I can imagine Harry cracking on
Yeah.
the car, couldn't you?
Yeah, yeah. So the last lyrics that I did write down for my little lyric section about maybe some ones that are tied into this was from the car, and it's travel size champagne cork pops, and we're sweeping for bugs in some dusty
Yes.
apartment. Which is a cool double, kind of meaning of like the dusty apartment, there's bugs, but like sweeping for bugs is like looking for microphones or stuff
And
like that.
perhaps a direct reference
Yeah.
to this film. Yeah, even
Yeah.
yeah, an
Could be.
actual reference to it. So that's
Mhm.
cool.
So that is cool. Yeah. A couple of the other ones, just for reference for lyrics wise, I do have some other things that I was like really surprised, kind of like really stuck out to me for this film as
Okay.
times. But lyrics were for a master of deception and subterfuge, you've made yourself quite the bed to lie in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Get freaked out from a knock at the door when I haven't been expecting one. And didn't that used to be part of the fun once upon a time? Panoramic windows looking out across your soul. I thought
Mm-hmm.
maybe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Life
Yep.
became a spectator sport, which definitely felt like the way Harry kind of lives his life, where he's pretty much just spends it
Yeah.
watching everybody else and has no life for himself.
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah. Poor
Um,
Harry.
Poor Harry, yeah. There are a couple, just two more reflections in the silver screen of strange societies.
Mm-hmm.
And then you push the button and we'll do the rest. The exotic sound
Yeah.
of data storage for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a lot. I didn't pick up on that kind of thing, but yeah, no, you're right. And there is a. I mean, because there is a 70s film vibe to that whole album, isn't there, in the lyrics, even
Mhm.
though it's about technology and even a hotel on the moon. It's kind of got that just 70s, yeah, cinematic,
Mhm.
panoramic, like you say, vibe to it. So yeah, no, he could have, maybe he was slipping little lines in there
Yeah.
about this. Yeah. He's
Those were
wouldn't
the
surprise
lyrics
me.
that stood out to me. Now big thing, so that really kind of struck me, especially as I was kind of going back on it. Now, in the same way that you said the car, when I started watching this film, the first thing I was thinking about was the car aesthetic with the kind of khaki, just a lot of
Mm,
the color of the vinyl and the like the outline of the sleeve and stuff like that
yeah,
has
yeah.
that seven, and that's a lot in this film. Even when I was going going back and looking at clips of it, I was like, oh, it's so like so khaki. So yeah, that was like really struck me. And also too, so the music videos from the car, there's three of them, and all three of them had kind of like scenes or vibes that kind of felt like this film in some ways. There's always like
Mm,
some like sometimes there's like multiple screens going
yeah.
on. Whereas like with the tranquility base videos, I definitely got more of a Kubrick vibe for sure. And he has some direct references even to like Kubrick films specifically. But
Right.
with this one, I
Yeah.
definitely feel like got the vibe more of this film from all three of the car music videos, and just the kind of film aesthetic of those. There's a lot more like khaki color in those two tannish colors. So yeah, I was
Yeah.
kind of surprised about the color palette.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because that kind of lends into this idea that there's a 70s vibe on both albums, and which there definitely is, which then lends into my theory that there's going to be a trilogy of, and the next one's going to be 70s rock.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, there is that certain like the very dull colors, isn't it? Khaki and that kind of. I
Mhm.
mean, I always think with the 70s, yeah, houses, decor, the wood paneling and all that kind of thing. But yeah, in the
Mhm.
Arctic Monkeys, you got the body paint video has that kind of camera aspect, doesn't it? It's
Mhm.
obviously the Tranquility, all the Tranquility ones are on that vibe, but yeah, even the Mirrorball video, even though that's just filming them recording the album, it's in
Mhm.
France or wherever, it's still got that feel to it of this. You could
That old
imagine the
grimy
characters in this film being
cinematic.
there.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's got that feel. I think he is. I think the reason this all is because Alex is obsessed with that. I think he's
Yeah.
obsessed. He's obsessed with old cameras and old aesthetics, and that
Mhm.
seems to be his current like love affair, doesn't it? Of things like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, I can imagine. I imagine he's seen this film a fair few times. I would imagine.
Which, to be fair, one of the things that I just liked about this film too were those kind of mechanical aesthetics.
Oh god, yes, yeah,
His
viscerally,
little
isn't it?
warehouse, yeah, there's just
Yeah,
something really appealing, and it's a weird period of time too, because throughout like all the rest of human history, you have like, I guess it's more architectural based or metal, the things that last and stuff like that, and then you have this
yeah,
brief period of time where you have these complicated machines that just are no longer relevant and just outdated, but they look, so they were made with metal and shiny, and they have so
yeah.
many intricate moving parts. There's something really appealing
I,
about those.
I love that sound of the. It's like ASMR for me. I can listen to it all the time. It's like the clunk of the and then the rewind sound, and then the
Yeah.
clunk again for the play. There's just something about hearing. I could listen to that all day. Yeah, it's just viscerally pleasing, I think. But yeah, all that. I think that's something as well that links them because I think Alex recorded a lot of this album on an old tape recorder, didn't he? The Tranquility
Mm,
Base. I
the
mean, he
demos.
the
Yeah.
demos on that when he before he took it to the rest of the band, he recorded himself on an old tape. So I can imagine he was clicking that, rewinding it, taping
Rewind.
over
Yeah.
parts. So it may be, yeah, there must be something in his head that links heavily to Harry and what he's doing in this in a way. I
Yeah.
do think that's what happened. I think Alex might have gone a little mad making this album, to be honest, as well. Like a
I
little,
was thinking that. Now another tie-in that kind of linked me more towards the car is, and we can get into kind of like the character of Harry as well, is I believe the car was Tranquility was released in 2018, but then the car was
Mm,
more made, and some of the demos and early stuff for the car was in during pandemic times when everybody was like locked up and alone during 2020. um even
yeah,
just like this character of Harry, like talking about like kind of Alex going crazy, is the huge point of the, or a lot of this is the paranoia of Harry even before he suspects anything's going on with his particular job. We get this introduction to him of he hates the fact that there's a second set of keys in his house. He's very detached from anybody in his life. He's got this kind of secret
yeah.
girlfriend who he just pops in on. She doesn't know
For no
anything
reason.
about him. Yeah, yeah.
He
She
doesn't
doesn't
need to
know
be
it's his
secret of it.
yeah, about his
Yeah.
birthday or anything.
Oh yeah,
Um
yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he's just paranoid about this life because he knows it from his perspective. I spy on people, I do these things to get their information. So yeah, he's just already kind of a recluse and insane from the very start.
Yeah, because it even ruins his sexy vibes of her when she reveals. I can't, was it his birthday that she says or something? She
Yeah.
says something and it really terrifies him that she knows that about him. So he like
Mhm.
can't. The sex is over and he's out. Here's your rent money. I'm off.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is completely detached, isn't he? And yeah, that's the interesting thing is that it's not the job that makes him that way. It just tips him over the edge. He
Mhm.
is obviously very paranoid. And I suppose if you work in a world of espionage where you're recording people all the time
Mhm.
and doing that, it is going to affect your
Yeah.
life on a day to day basis, isn't it?
It's kind of like that
Yeah.
reverse aspect too of like you only think about it because you're the one doing it. You know, like if somebody in a
Mm.
relationship is always asking like or is paranoid about somebody cheating on them, it's because they have that mindset, that kind of like cheating mindset. So it's kind of like the
Yes.
same
Yeah.
idea, you know, of why are you so paranoid? Oh, it's because you invade people's privacy constantly as a
Yeah.
living.
Because that was one of the things as well with him, like not trusting him. I was wondering where that twist, what was going to happen. Is he going to have done something? Is he
Mm.
paranoid for a reason? Is there something that he's done that's kind of made him this way? But yeah, no, really interested. And yeah, to link that, yeah, I imagine Alex recording these demos on his own in a room, recording them, and a lot of panic for him about the change of direction and are people gonna like this, or even the rest of the band gonna. At that point, he was worried the rest of the band wouldn't even like it. So I
Hmm.
imagine him and Harry were in the same, quite the same. If Alex was ripping up the floorboards trying
Maybe. I don't know.
to
He's
smashing
got the money to
his
blow. Yeah.
Marys.
Now that, so I kind of forgot about this, but it was something,
Mm,
this was kind of a surprising underlying theme that I
yeah.
picked up on that again had a really strong, I think, strong attachment to the car, which there was this kind of theme to me of this connection between art and commerce
Mm,
in the way of, so Harry is really good at what he does. He makes his own machines, he tinkers with them, and I'm glad, and I think it's important because we get that whole scene where he goes to the spy convention. People are trying to team up with him. People are like trying to kind of look at his machines and get into his head and stuff like that. So we do know that he is really good, but he does it with a passion, and he's really like that's really his whole life. But at the end of the day, he has to hand it over to somebody, and he's really concerned, like he has to do it to make money, but then it's out of his hands. It doesn't belong to him anymore. He can't
yeah.
control what the buyer does with it and thinks about it or reacts
Yeah.
to it. And so that
Oh,
hit me really
yeah.
strong where I was like,
Um,
because he loves doing it. It's his only thing that he's like really passionate about,
yeah.
except saxophone, which I think it's important that they make him an artist as well. And yeah, he's like so
Um,
worried to give it over because it's
yeah.
out of, he can't control it anymore.
And there's a subtext from Coppola there about art, and once the audience has it, when it's out there in the world, then you can't control it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
And the
heard because
director is the
yeah,
one who dies. They call him the director or whatever. So, and Harry, he is like he plays the saxophone, so he is a musician. Yeah, I was like,
yeah.
oh, it
No,
reminded me
that's
of
really
like stuff
interesting.
like
Yeah,
Big Ideas and stuff like that.
yeah. Because well, big, yeah, very much about that, isn't it? Big
Mhm.
ideas. No, that's really interesting, and yeah, especially since, as we just said, Alex worrying about this being a change of direction and getting everyone involved. And when we put it out there, well, how's it going to be received? And should I just put it out as a solo album because that's low key? Then nobody's really going to mind if I'm experimental on my
Yeah.
own. But with the band, it's going to cause this huge uproar because of AM and. It's
Hmm.
such a change. So,
Hmm.
yeah, and I think that is what I'm convinced now that that's what the film is actually about. Francis Ford Coppola's done that. Because I heard someone recently talking about this. Jesse Armstrong that writes Succession. He did a film. It was in England. I'm not sure. It's called Four Lions, and it was a comedy about suicide bombers, which might not sound like a comedy, but it's very well done and makes a good point. But when they played that in England, the satire was got. But he was talking about how when he played it in America, the audience were laughing at bits they shouldn't be laughing at. And I don't mean to offend Americans, but and he said the same when he put Succession out there, and people are kind of pro the Logan or the family. He's kind of like, what, this isn't the reaction that I want. And but once you put it out there in the world, you can't
Mhm.
control it. And I think it's how
Mhm.
you the same as how you get those people that the kind of masculine guys that miss the point of Fight Club, and they use Fight
Exactly.
Club as like a kind of straight. Once it's out there, people take it and turn it into their own thing, and you've lost control of it. And
Mhm.
yeah, you're right, because Harry is desperate to get it back, and he also feels like he has a right to know what you're going to do with it. And the client's like,
Mhm.
"I paid you. You've done your job. Go
Yeah.
away." Yeah,
And
to the
even when they
point. Yeah,
steal it from him, they still pay him. So, he definitely
yeah,
feels betrayed and stuff. And Harry, even going back to like the kind of idea of the solo album, Harry, even at one point, has that kind of freak out and he's like, I'm better off alone, or
Mm.
I don't need anyone. But obviously, he does. He's got to sell this to make money. Like he's got no other
yeah, yeah.
skills, no other. He can't even like talk to another person. So,
No, and even
um,
when he does something, goes like, isn't there a bit where the woman he's seen at the party, she sings the song that the girl on the tape sing in the is it Ring of
yeah,
Roses, or and he flips out because he's like, how do you know about that? Are you playing games with me? And at the time, I actually was with him. I was like, oh, someone's messing with him here. But yeah, I think it's a funny film because you don't know, because even Harrison Ford, for the little time that he's in it, does it amazing. Because I really didn't trust him. I was like, yeah, you get the tapes back, Harry, because this guy is up to
yeah.
something. There's something going on. At first, I thought, why is he not letting him meet the boss? I actually thought,
Mhm.
my first thought was that this was a ruse, and they were just trying to get the tapes before the actual client got the tapes. That's
Mhm.
what I thought was going on. I had all these mini theories throughout the film, which, like Harry, turned out to be nonsense. But yeah,
That's
that's
a
why I
good.
really like that. I really like that analogy. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, do you think that, what do you think about the ending? Do you think it's real? Do you think the director is murdered?
Yes. Well, because I didn't see that the twist coming.
Me neither did I. That's what I wanted to ask you too. Yeah, did you see? Like, I didn't at all. That was a good twist.
I didn't think any of it was real, and it was all going to be in Harry's head. Or my other theory was that he was going to be set up for the murder, and the director
Mm,
would kill the woman and then make it look like. And when he went in the hotel room and the blood came up, I thought, oh, he's definitely being set up. Like,
yeah.
I thought he was being set up to take the fall for the murder, because it all tracked that he could be, because of how the situations he'd put himself in throughout the film.
Mhm.
But no, it was a good twist. But yeah, I think, was it real? It's interesting because I did think it was real until, because there's the religious undertone as well, isn't there? Because he's very religious, which didn't really
Mm.
tally with how he behaved as a person, which is probably what you could say about a lot of religious people. But he did this confession, and even in that scene, I was like, that's not the priest, that's someone else behind there listening. That's not the priest in the
Yeah, I was
confession
thinking that
box. I was
too.
like, that's that director. Is that Harrison Ford behind there? But and then so he won't. He's very religious, and it pains him to. He breaks to the point where he will smash and that kind of. I guess that's how they show that he's finally broken, because he will smash the Mother Mary, or whatever you call it,
Yeah, the
statue.
merry little statue. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he will smash it. Whereas before that, obviously, he's very protective over that kind of stuff. So I think. Do I think it was real? I think I do think it was real, but I don't think it's real that he gets the call at the end that he's being
Mm.
blackmailed. I
Hmm.
think they did do that, but nobody really cares about Harry. I think that's the sad truth about the film, is no one really thinks Harry matters. He's not.
Hmm.
He's just the guy, the sound guy that records the stuff. He doesn't really matter, and I don't think they see him as a threat. No one would believe him anyway if he did start saying this. So I think he overestimates his own importance in the story, in the paranoia, which could be said for a director as well, or a writer. When you put something out there, you might overestimate your own influence on it, and then once you put it out there, you're like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't
I'm
actually.
just.
It was my idea, but somehow I mean nothing to it anymore.
Yeah.
So I think it was real up until the point he got the phone call when he was playing the sax, and then he went just insane and obviously started riffing up the floorboards and everything. That would be my thought on it.
I thought, yeah, I thought it was real too, and specifically something that you just mentioned before, because you don't know this at the time. But looking back, so the woman who ultimately steals the tape, she works for at least Harrison Ford. We think it's the
Yeah.
director. We haven't seen the director at this point, but so she is singing the song, which is obviously the song that the woman's singing. At the time, you think that the woman and the man that Harry's spying on, they're having an affair, and you think they're in danger because, oh, if this powerful director finds out, he's going to
Yeah.
kill them. But the whole twist is that no, they're setting up the director to be killed, even Harrison Ford,
Yeah.
who works for him. So that ties the woman who works for Harrison Ford, who's working to get the tapes from Harry, ties her to that whole party through this kind of song. And so I do think that it did happen. And I love that scene where he's trying to investigate the murder and like it's all clean, but then the blood pours
Blood
out of the
comes up.
toilet and
Yeah.
you're like, is it real? What? But I tend to agree with you too that I like whether or not it's real at the end, the fact that they, even if it was real that they called him, the fact that they're not even coming after him,
Yeah.
it's like, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But I
Because I
love
did.
that scene where he's just left desperate with nothing and just playing his sax in his wrecked apartment because he was looking for that bug that he thought was in his. Oh man, that was so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Which there could almost be a commentary about art there as well, isn't there? And
Mhm.
the sort of madness of trying to find the right thing. But yeah, no, I think you think you charm the same. But it's interesting because if the woman that stole them, I question whether that the situation with that woman. When I tried to watch it again, and I can't about whether she was real or not, that woman, because I was trying to watch back at the party and see did anyone else really fully interact with her,
Mm.
because if you think about it, if she steals the tapes at first, like you say, you think she works for the director and is trying to steal the tapes
Mhm.
because and then he's going to kill them, but then you think, well, if the director was being set up, then she was working with the couple.
Mhm.
But then that doesn't make any sense because they want him to hear the tapes to lead him to the hotel room to beg her so that they can kill him in the hotel room
Mhm.
if it was all planned and a setup. So they wanted him to hear the tapes.
Yeah.
So therefore, why would they have someone steal them? So it makes me question that woman and what
Well, I
her
think they
unless she
were
is work for the
all
director still.
yeah, so I think they all work for or I think Harrison Ford is in on the game because he is then
He's there at the end.
working for his wife at the end. So
Yes,
his whole
yes.
thing is I have to get the tapes to the director. So there's a physical like
Yeah.
like to get him there for him to go to the hotel room.
Yes, so Harry. Yeah, so that's why he's so desperate to get them earlier on. Yeah, that makes sense. I'd forgot he was there at the end. And yeah, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, yeah, he's in on it. Harrison, how could you?
Yeah.
So Harry was completely right not to trust Harrison in the
Yeah.
film then because he
Mhm.
was trying to get them to give to get the director there, but it's the director who is this very small cameo by
Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall, who obviously is
Yeah.
a big part in The Godfather.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's interesting. But do you think it was real? What happened at the end?
Yeah, I think so. Especially because like the tie-in with the car crash, I do think it's real, and it's almost that like it's completely inverted, but like even like with his paranoia of the beginning of he's so preoccupied with his past trauma that he's looking in one direction when it's like so I don't think if it wasn't real I don't think he would have made that reality. If it wasn't real, I feel like he would have leaned more towards the couple was killed because that would
Mm,
have justified his paranoia, right? Like I
yeah,
was right, I was trying to save him and I couldn't and nobody believed me, but instead with the director being killed it totally you know subverts that. So that's why I do think it probably was.
yeah, I agree. I think it was real. I'm just not sure about whether they bothered to blackmail him
Oh
at the
yeah.
end. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't yeah, probably like yeah, I don't know. I guess I would almost lean like I don't know. It's weird because the one place he doesn't check, I guess, he destroys everything but his saxophone. And I think really it's just about that message. I think that is important because even when like your most cherished faith, you destroyed your Mary, but when everything else is destroyed, you're just left with your art because you can't part with anything else. You know?
Well, I mean, when I was watching it, I questioned whether any conversation that came through his secret line was real
Mm,
at all, because it seemed like he didn't know how anyone got that number. And when the person rings him to go and give the tapes to get the money near the start of the film, the person on the phone line is being very abrasive with him and about it, even though they want him there to get the tapes, so why would he be abrasive? And when they get there, it doesn't really seem like they were even expecting him. So throughout the film, I kept wondering, is any of this conversation on this phone actually happening, or is this his paranoia? Because the
mm.
person on the other end of the phone was being needlessly opaque and difficult with him and secretive for no apparent reason because they wanted him to bring the tapes. So
That's a good,
what
yeah.
I started to think is that his paranoia as well feeding in there. But also, it was interesting how they did show the thing at the conference that the guy invented where you could have the phone tap by ringing it and not answering, wasn't it? So I think that was
Hmm.
kind of a clue about the phone as well there. So I'm in between really about
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Either
But
way, I think it's like it was brilliant because yeah, it's just I wasn't expecting it at all. Like you said, I was kind of anticipating maybe a framing type of situation too, or he would get hurt. I think just like leaving him completely alone, whether it's like real or not, it's just as an ending of a film, it was really rewarding to me. I was like, holy shit.
yeah. Well, I think as well, it's not really as me and on the new episode of Don't Believe the Hype that's coming out next Wednesday. Me and Nick ended that episode saying that we don't need to necessarily know what this song is about. We
Mm,
just need to know the theme. And I
yeah.
think I could go for this film as well. It doesn't matter really ultimately whether that happened or not. It's the overall theme
Yeah.
that is important. And I
Yeah.
really like the art subtext that you've brought to it. And I'm now that's all that matters now. That's all it's about. No, it has to be. It has to be.
Yeah.
And the way that links to Alex as well at the time. So it just yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, so kind of touching on that too, you mentioned it briefly, you did like a little tease, but I was going to ask what you kind of thought about this soundtrack, the music in this film.
Hmm. Yeah, I clearly liked it. It's interesting because I would say there's two scores. There's the actual score, and then there's the sound. Very much the recording of the
Mm,
park visit was kind of a score in and of itself throughout the
mm-hmm,
film.
mm-hmm,
But the actual piano element to the score, I really liked. It was like the vibe it got for me, and this may make absolutely no sense, but I wrote down when I was listening to it, it's like a sinister concert pianist going off on a tangent. That's kind
mm-hmm,
of the vibe it got. Like I imagined a concert pianist in a hall who was up to no good and he just went off and doing his own thing for a while on the
mm-hmm.
piano because it just invoked this, yeah, kind of off vibe that added to the score because it wasn't like an actual rhythm or pattern or notes that you could kind of keep going. It was like this off playing of the piano. It was this kind of jazz improv version of piano that was doing it in the style of a kind of old piano, Beethoven, Mozart type thing. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I thought it really added to. I thought they used it really well when it came in and out at different points. So yeah, I thought it really, really worked. I loved it.
Have you ever seen a show called Severance?
Oh God, I love Severance. Yeah, I can't. I'm still waiting for the next series, but strikes be strikes. But
Well, yeah,
we support the
dude,
strike.
yeah, that intro, I don't know if you remember or not, but
Mm,
actually the music in that had to
yeah,
be heavily inspired by this. And they have some similar kinds of themes going on there with the
yeah, absolutely.
technology and stuff.
Yeah.
But it is very sinister, but it's so that was one that I ultimately recorded as one of our mini casts for Patreon because it's got that, it's one of those things where it's unsettling, even as a show. It's not necessarily straight up horror, but like what's happening to these people, even kind of like a Twin Peaks or something. It's really strange. It's really weird. It's to the point where you don't want to accept it, or you would hate to be in that position.
Yeah.
And I think the music kind of reflects that too. It's seemingly normal, or it's taking what seems to be like a normal piano, and at first it kind of seems nice, but then it immediately isn't. But it's not like a Halloween where it's like this something is wrong. It's just
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
very
Off.
disturbed by it. You're like, what is
Yeah.
going on with this? I loved the soundtrack in this. It was
Yeah.
brilliant.
Well, much like the film, isn't it? The way it's off, and I keep saying off. I'm not sure if that's a term that doesn't translate, but it's a kind of off kilter. Let's say it's just
Yeah,
not
yeah,
right
yeah.
about it, and that's like the entire film. There's just something that isn't quite right about what's going
Mhm.
on. And yeah, they play into it well. And yeah, the Severance thing is there are a lot of similarities, and that show was directed by Ben Stiller, who was in a film with Gene Hackman. So there you go. It
Yeah,
all
there you go.
links. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
the guy who wrote that, who did Zodiac, his name was David Shire. So he's like super old now. I saw an interview with him, and he's like really old. But yeah, I was like, oh, I got to check out
yeah,
more of his stuff. This was one of the as soon as this movie started, this is one of those elements, almost like a Jaws in a way, where I was like, this immediately kind of elevates this film.
yeah,
It sets the tone for this film immediately, because they
yeah.
use it in that kind of opening. So I was like, oh my god, I was really impressed by it. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great, and not it's not memorable in the way like you say as a Halloween or something like these great film scores that you would go, oh yeah, that that film score, but it's perfect for this, and
Hmm.
they absolutely nail that. But yeah, did it remind you of any Arctic Monkeys work while you were listening to it?
It actually did. Again, more the car. Like the more I was like,
Mm,
this to me feels like the car more than anything. So honestly, the opening of Mirrorball a little bit.
yeah,
That
yeah,
because
that's
it's
okay.
got that kind of creepy thing going on.
Yeah,
The piano parts in the body paint breakdown, or
yep,
kind of outro-ish part, whatever, that part.
yeah, that pop.
And then as you said, just in its feeling of like Mr. Schwartz and the car, but nothing too specifically from Tranquility, actually. How about you? Was there anything that you thought about?
Yeah, I agree with you on the car ones, but I actually did, for some reason, parts of it did invoke tranquility for me, and it was more like I kind of star treatment. I kind of got bits and that.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept for some reason in my head, I kept coming back to American Sports and Tranquility Base and 4 out of 5. I think, particularly 4 out of 5, there were some parts of the score near the end
Mm-hmm.
really gave me vibes of just the opening piano of that when you can hear, even if it was just the odd note. It wasn't so much that I thought it sounded like it. I just
Mm-hmm.
felt a vibe. There was something there that made me think of those songs straight away. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know why that I couldn't put that into words, which isn't good for a podcast, but there was just something that linked them intrinsically. And perhaps that's just picking up on Alex's link. That's just like a sound or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that it did give me it gave me it was the outro score. That's what got me the most. So there's a score that comes in while he's ripping up the floorboards, after he's
Mm-hmm.
had when he smashes the Mary and he does all of that. That was the one that really gave me tranquility vibes.
Mm-hmm.
That part, it just screamed that album to me. And
Mm-hmm.
also the weird when they're doing that, they put this weird tape distortion sound coming through while the piano's going, while he's losing it. And that gave me vibes of do you know the part in the Tranquility video where it breaks down into that the music we use for the lyrical arm on our podcast, that
Yep.
for some reason that
Mm-hmm.
gave me vibes of that bit as well. It just yeah, I wouldn't say there's anything that I could go, oh yeah, that sounds like the score to
Mm-hmm.
this. But I don't know, I just got a feeling from it a little bit.
Now, when you said it, American Sports, when he like sings out like or she sings the line American Sports, and there's that like kind of like no 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 or whatever, that kind of
Yeah.
has a similar kind
Yeah.
of unsettling, weirdish kind of vibe too. That's
Yeah.
as soon as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I was like kind of
Yeah.
thinking about that little melody. Yeah.
That weird noise. It is more the weird noises in the
Mm-hmm.
album that remind me of this. Those little strange noises that they have in
Mm-hmm.
that album, and as well when he's when he's listening to the vinyl and playing the saxophone along to it, it kind of that did actually make me think of Alex again in his room alone, writing the album, just on the same foot here.
Yeah.
Like it's just very. I think maybe he saw a kindred spirit in Harry, Alex during this, which isn't the person that you necessarily want to be a kindred spirit to, but yeah, but and obviously Tranquility has a jazz vibe to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So and this obviously this has a lot of yeah, it has a lot of jazz to it. But I completely agree. The score also took me to the car. It took me to the specific song in the car as well. That kind of piano in the little bits of piano that are in there. Yeah, that kind of intermittent playing.
Now
Yeah,
there was one more that I remember, since I said, oh, it didn't remind me of Tranquility, and this is one of your favorites. And it was from one of the lyrics I read earlier, which kind of gives me even stronger vibes for it. Is the world's first ever monster truck front flip.
What's the title of that song again? No, I'm joking.
Yeah, but the first part of it where it kicks off the dun 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 dun, because it's that's kind of like a weird melody too, especially compared to how the verses end up playing out more like a traditional type of song. It's kind of, you're like, and even like as a rhythm, you're kind of like, whoa, what's going on with
what's
this one?
going
So
on?
kind of similar vibe there.
Yeah, and the sound that between One Point Perspective and American Sports, that do 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 kind of a bit, and also the start of Bat Phone, that not Bat Phone, is it Bat Phone? No, Golden
Trunks.
Golden Trunks. I think that kind of that way that more a theme vibe than an actual sound. But
unsettling,
unsettling sound, and that song actually is about two lovers in a hotel room. So
okay,
and
there
it's
you
got
go.
like because he says it's the only love song on the album, but it doesn't feel like a love song in the music. It look much like. Would you class this film as perhaps partly romantic? Because it is about a couple that love each other so much that they'll kill her husband.
If it was like from her perspective,
maybe, yeah. It doesn't seem like they're doing it for good reasons, though, does it? Like, of love, it feels like. If I was the guy that she's with the glasses, I would be worrying about this woman, to be honest with you, for the future. Like, what?
But he's about to, if he sticks around, he's about to apparently inherit this huge company or whatever, so which he apparently works at. So he, you know what, he gets to kill his boss, or he gets to help in killing his boss. So there you go.
We all dream of that. So
cool. Well, to kind of like wrap things up, out of 5 stars, what would you rate this film? And you can get, if there's anything else you want to touch on, any of the other positives we didn't really get to go into or anything like that. What do you think about this film overall?
Yeah, I think with the kind of, I really love the way they use the camera in this film with the panning shots across rooms and less edits, which I think you need in a film about paranoia, because if there's loads of edits, you won't really, I don't think it creates the same atmosphere. I think the acting is really low key and subtle on purpose to probably like make you feel out of sort, perhaps. And that's really hard from an acting point of view to do a good performance and basically put nothing into it, because they're not doing this showy acting where you go, oh wow, what a performance at the end of it, but they do this great performance. And yeah, on that, the scene I found most interesting was the warehouse scene where Harry has a moment where he steps out of his shell for the first time, and he smiles and he becomes a bit smug about it and arrogant about his work. And then he gets immediately made a fool out of him because the guy put the pen on him, and he just reverts back into his shell. And it's like, oh, you tried, Harry. You tried to be a show, but no, he really shows off for like 2 minutes, and then he comes back and he tells a distasteful homophobic joke, but we'll move on from for that. And then, I just think Gene Hackman did an amazing job with just that minute of performance where you really see, and also like, in that moment, I see who he is and I empathize with him because he's a bit of a sad character. I also like dislike him a lot at the same time, because he is obviously quite smug as well and arrogant about his work. And that smug and arrogance has made him paranoid about not working with anybody else, because he can't, like, maybe that's a thing on art as well, and directors being difficult. But and I love the constant rewinding and stopping of the tapes again, like I said. But I really like the way they when they rewind that tape, they show the flashback to us. So they rewind the tape and then they'll show the flashback at the park to what he's here, and I think that's a really cool way of of showing it. I think a lesser film would have just had the sound of that
Hmm.
with his reaction, but the way they show it intercutting is great. Shout out to the lighting. Shout out to the lighting team on this, because the scene when he's in the warehouse with the woman before she nicks the tape, before she takes
Hmm.
it, he's lay on this makeshift bed, and the way they do it, it's like he's in a prison cell.
Hmm.
And at the time, he's like freaking out about these tapes and having these weird dreams, much like he's in a kind of perhaps a prisoner in his own mind, is what they're getting out there with old Harry. So yeah, the blood coming up from the toilet, another pro. So I also love that. I think they don't hold your hand narratively through the twist. I think a lot of lesser films might have just given you an exposition dump
Yeah.
straight away, and you would have been like, okay, explain it, but they let you piece it through what they're showing you. So I would give it 4.5 out of, are we allowed points? Is that, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
4.5
yeah,
out of 5.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because my only critique, Mr. Coppola, my only critique is because I think, like I say, great job of making you feel as unsettled as him, and a really good twist. But I do feel I needed something more in the final act to make me go, wow, what a twist. If there'd
Mm,
just been a little bit more to that story, I think, with
mm,
the killing, I think I would have gone, wow, amazing twist. But it's something left me wanting, just a
mhm.
0.5 of a star. Something that left me
Or
wanting.
to
But
even
yeah.
say like, is that the end? Is it done?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's all I ask of Francis, my good friend Francis.
Yeah.
But I but yeah, no, yeah, 4.5.
Cool. Yeah. Actually, weirdly enough, I'm going to echo that. There was, and now this it could be a potential for future growth, for this film, because I do anticipate it being one of those ones where it'll always be in the back of my mind now of, somebody maybe just like looking for a really good film that just it's just not out there that much. And it's be like, I always feel like I could fall back on this one and be like, you need to check out The Conversation because it's a really quality film that just I don't think gets kind of the credit maybe it deserves.
No, yeah.
But yeah, but it is low key, and it is. I think a part of it too is it's hard to follow in a film. It's a brilliant character study, but
Mm.
it is hard to follow in a film with someone you constantly don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and especially and it's a weird aspect too because he's a part of this community or this profession that should be frowned upon a lot more. Like you're kind of invading people's privacy, but they play it up in this way where he goes to this convention and everybody's acting super goofy and they're just a bunch of
Yeah.
nerds and and so
Yeah.
they take all the kind of threat out of it and it almost seems like, yeah, see, these are just like regular guys with like regular jobs. And it's like, no, I mean, they're still kind of shitbags, like they should be spying on people. So, but yeah, I do to kind of talk about something that you referenced. I love the structure of his workspace because it's this huge open warehouse, but
Mm,
only this tiny corner of it is actually occupied. And
yeah.
in the way you talked about him being in a jail, like locked in his mind, it's the same kind of way of he's in this whole life, all he has, he's pushed the little bit of like romance or connection that he might have and he's just left with this corner of that just gives him strife. He's good at it, but it's like leads to paranoia and he's wrecked his apartment at the end and it brings
Yeah.
them no happiness. So it's just like this big open warehouse and just like these tapes in the very edged corner of it in this cage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
it looks great.
he even pushes away the one person that does seem to quite like him, Stan, doesn't he? Is
Yeah.
Fredo, poor Fredo, always getting pushed
Yeah.
away, isn't he? I,
Yeah.
but no, yeah, and I think yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And I also thought at the end when he smashed it up, it was like, what did you even have anyway, Harry? Because you've made your life so pathetic. Because you
Yeah.
would rather, because he's obviously got money because he's getting paid a lot to do this, but how many um he would rather pay the rent of this woman than have an actual meaningful relationship with her and live with her. He'd rather
Yeah.
he keeps everyone at an arm's length, doesn't he? And I
Yeah.
thought the convention scene I felt at first was a bit off-putting, that, like you say, it was nerds having fun and all that. When they got back to the warehouse, I had this really sort of tight knot in my stomach that something bad was going to happen in that scene,
Mhm.
with that guy, because that guy was just the worst, wasn't he? That sort of
Yeah.
sleazy salesman.
Barry, I think, yeah, is
Barry,
his
yeah.
name. Yeah.
But then I did, but
Bernie,
then
Bernie. Yeah.
I even felt a bit sorry from one point there, because he was just trying to want to work with Harry and be nice with him, but he kind of didn't want him near him. But then I think he also thought, well, you're a charlatan and you're kind of a snake oil salesman version
Yeah.
of what I do, didn't he?
Yeah.
But yeah, I did actually think that one of the twists was going to be that he would be in on it and Harry would be like Harry's downfall. But
Yeah.
I thought that would have been good. But there you go. The more notes from Mr. Coppola. Again, I'll stop speaking now.
Oh no, yeah. So yeah,
The Coppola estate's coming from.
yeah, I thought I'm not even honestly like the kind of cream aesthetic, the khaki, the tans. I'm not a huge fan of 70s cinema because of like
Yeah.
the lack of color in that way. And even when there is like color, it's like the bold oranges and like it's still weird weird color palette for the 70s. But I thought
Yeah.
that this film was beautiful, honestly, and paired with the like weird music and the like you said, the camera shots and the uncertainty, the twist, the narrative twist I like totally didn't see coming. It all like works really well. It's just
Yeah.
it is kind of like a rough character to kind of follow along for a whole movie. And yeah, the ending does, while it is like really smart, it also does kind of be a like, oh wait, you're kind of like left like looking around of like, what? Oh, the credits are showing now. Like what? So yeah.
Isn't it fascinating how that works though? Because we wouldn't say that about Francis Ford Coppola's other film series, The Godfather.
Yeah.
Even though we should really find that character's way more despicable than we find Harry.
True.
But it is interesting that it's all about that character and their charisma and the performance and what they're doing and whether we like them, isn't it? We've put a lot of that in there.
Well, yeah, even like The Sopranos, Breaking Bad,
Yeah,
the same kind
anti-hero,
of things. Yeah, exactly. Where you're like, man, this dude's a real piece of. Except Harry is so subdued, maybe that he's just like, kind of cowering most, or not cow, but I don't know. Yeah, he just seems kind of pathetic.
It'd be like
I
if
guess.
Walt was Walt in the first couple of episodes the whole way through Breaking Bad. You'd
Exactly.
Be like, this guy. Oh, watch this guy.
Exactly.
Boring Walt.
Yeah.
But it is really interesting what they do with it. But it just shows there's so much to talk about with it though, and so you could probably spend hours finding new things. And I found that on my second watch of it in the past week that I liked it a lot more. I would advise people to watch it a couple of times, I think, to pick up on stuff. Yeah.
It's definitely a film I want to revisit with the potential that eventually I'd be like, okay, this is a 5-star film that, it is of that quality. So potentially room to grow. But awesome. Well, thanks for discussing that with me. Let's, shake it off a little bit, relax, and let's play our Rotten Tomatoes game. All right, so this is a game that we play on our main podcast, but I have to give it a little twist for this one because it's just two of us. So,
okay.
So in this one, what we're going to do is I've taken the Rotten Tomatoes score from the conversation and I've paired it in 3 rounds against 3 other films. So I have the critic score aggregate out of 100% and the audience score aggregate out of 100%. So the first film we're going to try to guess against. Now, I'm going to tell you once we're finished with this why this was a lot harder this time around than it normally is, but it was like really difficult to do this one. So the first one is going to be against The Godfather 3. So do you think the conversation on the critic score is higher or lower than The Godfather 3?
Higher.
Okay, you think it's higher.
Yes.
Okay. So let me put that down.
And if not, I've given up on society if it isn't.
Okay, so the next one we're going to go to, so that one was directed by the same director. Wait, Francis Ford Coppola did 3, right?
I think he did, yeah, because Sofia Coppola's in it, and that was pure nepotism because she's dreadful.
Yeah. Okay, so same director. I went for the next one is Superman, who that also has Gene Hackman in it.
Oh yeah.
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 So do you think, which one do you think is higher in the audience score for this one, The Conversation or Superman?
In the audience category, I'm gonna say Superman.
Okay, Superman is higher. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm confirming. I'm confirming your submission. Okay. And the final one, I'll let you choose if you want the critic score or the audience score.
Okay.
But I had to go with Star Wars: A New Hope that also has Harrison Ford in it. So, do you want audience score or critic score, and which one do you think is higher between The Conversation and Star
A New
Wars?
Hope is the first Star Wars film, isn't it?
Yeah,
The yeah,
the
yeah,
very first, yeah,
yeah.
episode 4, but yeah, the first one. Yep.
I'm gonna I'm gonna go critic score,
Okay.
and I'm gonna say that this is higher
Okay.
than A New Hope.
Okay. All right. So let me give you the numbers. The Conversation on the critic score is 97%, and
Wow.
on the audience score is 89%. So love across the board for this movie. It's
Wow.
high praise across the board. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I was surprised and pleased. I was happy about that. So
Yeah.
certainly certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Now versus The Godfather 3. Now let me tell you why this was difficult, because I was going to go with The Godfather because I try to pair it like with like quality too, so it's a little harder to guess. But The Godfather 2, I was going through a bunch of different films. They had no, I guess because they're older, but this one had it. Star Wars had no critic score. They had an
Oh,
audience
really?
score, but it was just blank. It was just a
Oh,
blank
that's
space. I
strange,
was
isn't
like,
it?
yeah, it was
Yeah,
really
because
weird.
it's Godfather 3 is from the early 90s, is it? Is it's a bit later, isn't it? But
Yeah,
yeah, if Star
yeah.
Wars has it, you would
Well, yeah,
think that,
Star Wars
yeah,
has it.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know what's
Strange.
up with that. So I had to go with The Godfather 3. And on that one, you were correct. The critic score is 66%. So significantly lower. And also, weirdly, matching is the audience score at 66%.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, are you saying that you don't think The Godfather 3 is quality?
Honestly, I've never seen The Godfather 3.
Yeah,
I've
you know
seen
what?
one
It's
and
yeah.
two.
It took me a while. I watched the first two a lot, and then I was like, you know what? It can't be that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never watched it. So,
Yeah, no need.
um, based on its reputation, I'm kind of surprised it's that high. But what are you
Yeah.
going to do? Maybe I'll check
Yeah.
it out one
I
day.
think you get a lot of fanboy purists that really don't want
Sure.
it. Like, no, it's good. It is good. It
It's
completes
good.
it completes it. It completes the story.
Exactly.
Mm.
Okay, so versus Superman, we went with the audience score on this one. You said you thought Superman was higher. This one was incorrect. So
Wow.
the Conversation was 89 on the audience, 86 on Superman. So very close, but just a few points
I,
off.
I imagine it just says what I think about the general public, but I assume this would be lower with the audience score because I would have thought, this film wouldn't be for everyone if you went it, because this tops a lot of psychological thrillers lists along with
Mm-hmm.
some of the films we mentioned earlier, which you could say are maybe more exciting to watch. Let's say if you're just your
That's fair.
average
Yeah.
movie watcher. And I imagine if you put this on great psychological thriller, this is going to be a fun night. You and your partner watching it, you might not want the slow burn that this film is
Yeah.
with a very little payoff if you're not into kind of the themes. So I kind of thought the audience score would be low because of that, but I underestimated people. What can you say? Yeah.
That is a good guess. I would have been on the same thought path as you. I would have thought Superman would have been higher.
Gives
It's
me hope, I
lower.
suppose.
It's lower on the critic score too, because Superman is 94 and The Conversation was 97. So lower
I've
across the board.
Wow, I've never seen that Superman film, so
I have, but it's been a really long time. Some people like really love those. I mean, yeah, so 94%, but yeah, maybe I'll revisit it one day.
94. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And finally, Star Wars, A New Hope, Episode 4. You went with the critic score, which you thought The Conversation would be higher. On this one, you are correct. Congratulations. Yeah.
I was hoping it wouldn't be influenced by any reviews from later years that
Oh
retrospectives,
yeah.
because I know that when it came out, it was not expected to do well, and it was kind of trounced on by the critics, and they were like, "What, this bit of space opera with people wearing silly costumes and stuff? No, what, this will never take off." I
Yeah.
remember that being the vibe I've heard, but yeah, just shows you the critics, don't know
Yeah.
everything.
Well, and also too, they were really close. Like I said, other than The Godfather 3, I try to pick movies that are pretty close, because this one, so again, 97 for the conversation. This one was 93, so just 4 points off from on
Yeah,
the critic side.
I had never seen a single Star Wars film until the pandemic,
Wow. Okay.
because I just never got around to them, and I'd seen the entire plot
They have a
in
lot
like
of
The
hype.
Simpsons and stuff
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
So I was like, do I need to see them? But then
Yeah.
my mate was like, well, let's go on Zoom and watch all the Star Wars films during lockdown, and yeah, I quite enjoyed them actually. Not the
Good. Okay.
2001,
Yeah,
2001
that's fair.
films.
Yeah, the originals, though. Yeah. Good. Cool. So, yeah, congratulations. All right. That means we just have one more segment that we got to cover. I know you're really
Great.
looking forward to this one.
I am.
We're going to do our cooter of the week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
All right. A cooter is a character type, and a cooter has to hit 3 of 5 points to be considered a cooter. But, if there's more than one, we want the one with the highest points. So the 5 points that we can consider for cooterdom are sexual deviance, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall look and attire, and overall patheticness. So is there anyone who stood out as a strong cooter candidate for you, Dan?
Well, I have two, but we'll start with my sort of main initial visceral dislike. I really, really wanted to die Anne, who ends up obviously, and that was before I knew the twists. So I didn't like her the whole way through the film, even when I thought she might be the victim of the thing. He's played by Cindy Williams, who tragically passed away a year ago to the day that we're recording this podcast, which is a strange coincidence.
Yeah.
But I really wanted the killer to kill her because I just found her so. And also, kind of weirdly, I felt like she was Zoe Deschanel. Like when I first saw her, I was like, "Oh, Zoe Deschanel." I was like, "No, that can't be right." And then I was convinced it was going to be a mum or something, but it wasn't. So on the sort of list, sexual deviance.
She's cheating on her husband.
I was taking that even further than that with the sexual deviance, killing the husband as well.
Yeah.
Most people that have affairs don't go that far. And then usually, and then manipulation, big tick. Yep. Huge
big
manipulation
time.
from Anne. Big manipulation.
Especially she's behind this. Like if she's, driving this whole thing, I got to kill my husband, take over the company, all that kind of stuff.
And she's convinced this man's fighting to help her, and she's convinced even Harrison Ford to help her, like as well. So yeah.
And the whole cover up at the end. Oh, he died like in a car wreck. Like she had to rig that up too. So manipulation high. Yeah.
Even when she looks at Harry at the end in the car, she's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do, Harry? I don't care. So on that as well, smug arrogance.
Very good. Yeah.
Tick. Yeah. So look and attire.
Okay.
I mean, I don't just want to shit on her clothes, so I'm not going to do that. But it was the 70s.
Pretty standard for the time. Yeah.
Like you said before about the 70s not like being as they always say fashion's cyclical, like 80s clothes are back in now, 90s clothes are coming back in. 70s clothes never come back. That's the decade that isn't cyclical. No one wants anything to do with it. The decor of the houses, the wood paneling, nobody wants that now. So just generally everyone in this film could fall under bad look and attire. So we'll give her that. But overall patheticness, I didn't actually think she's not pathetic because she's crafty, so she doesn't hit that one, I don't think. But
yeah, she got everything she wanted.
Yeah, so big tick on the first 3 and 4 tick just because it's the 70s.
So yeah, she definitely hits enough. She definitely hits enough marks. Was there anybody else that really stood out to you in this one?
Yeah, so Stan. His little buddy in the warehouse.
Yeah. Okay. So I stand.
Poor Fredo. Always Fredo. Well, he doesn't fall under sexual deviance unless there's, I don't know. I don't know what he gets up to outside of work, but manipulation, not so much. I mean, does he take that other job at the conference just to kind of manipulate Harry into giving him a pay rise and begging
back
him?
and
Like, you know,
respect.
when you get seen with another girl after your ex dumps you, like in front of her, just to make her jealous. That's sort of the
Yeah.
vibes I got. So maybe
Well,
a bit.
even from Harry's perspective, he's got to be thinking like, is he giving away my secrets, or you know, those kind of
playing
things
with
and
him.
stuff?
Yeah, and it was only the
could be.
next day. It was a rash
Yeah.
decision. So, and then he's at the party with him later. So you know, yeah, bit weird. Smug arrogance. No, I didn't get that feeling from him.
Yeah.
But looking attire, big no from me. Not even 70s. Just I mean, it's Fredo in it. You know, he may as well just be Fredo in this film. I felt. Overall, perfect. This huge tick from me because he's such a pathetic character. Bless him. He's just got no. He's just this guy. His boss won't even speak to him. His other boss has probably only hired him just so he can get Harry's secrets. He's kind of stuck between them. He's at this party trying to, you know, be a sort of ladies' man at one point, failing miserably. Poor Stan. He's the peak patheticness.
Also tied in kind of with patheticness and looking attire, when he gets hired on, don't they put him in some kind of weird little goofy, when he's at the conference, don't they give him some weird kind of little goofy outfit to wear to like represent the booth or something like that?
I feel like Francis Ford Coppola just lives to make that actor whose name escapes
Miserable.
me. Just miserable, like play these like John Cazale. He's Fredo. There's that scene when he's in Vegas and he's wearing the big suit and he's pathetic and his brother's like, you know, you're an idiot. He just lives to make this guy look a fool, I think, on camera. But yeah, I would say that. But I mean, I would, I guess. I mean, I'm not sure if you have one, but I guess Harry kind of fits this bill as well, because he, you know, would I have minded if he'd been killed at the end? I don't think I would have been sad for him.
Yeah.
I think
like honestly, and we were kind of expecting it, weren't we? We were kind of thinking like, oh yeah, either Harry's gonna die or he's gonna get framed and he's just gonna like live life in prison. So.
and since even though they didn't explore it as much as we might like, we do know that his job and his kind of asked to get money to sell someone has got people killed, got a whole family killed of people. So he's not exactly a good guy.
He's definitely pathetic.
He's definitely pathetic. Yeah, that's the main one. Yeah, in his warehouse or his makeshift bed in his one-bed apartment. Yeah, even though he's rich. Sexual deviance. But I mean, he does.
Was that woman a prostitute? Which, I mean, you know what? Maybe it's fair enough if you're consenting adults, but
is it question? Is it two different? The woman in the apartment at the start and the woman that steals the tapes at the warehouse, are they two different women?
They are two different women.
Right. Because that confused me.
That's why I was wondering. I was confused too.
Very similar looking actresses. Maybe that was on purpose to kind of give us his type.
Yeah.
I would say, considering he has a woman that he keeps very much at arm's length from any kind of emotional relationship and pays for her like a prostitute to live in an apartment, but then he also sleeps with a woman at a party when she's not around, is a pretty shitty sexual thing to do. So I reckon he's a bit of a sexual just in the way that men in the 70s were sexual deviants.
Well, and like kind of the control of it all too, of like, I'll just show up at your door. I pay for your apartment and I'll have sex with you because it's my birthday, but like I'll dip out and not even tell you like anything about myself. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, he's not a good emotional partner is he to be with. No. But
now his looking attire is I was reading some trivia that said they specifically like tried to make him look as pathetic as possible through his wardrobe. So I think wardrobe. I think looking attire.
You just gave me a flashback. When we did Stan, the sexual deviancy, there's a really creepy bit at the start where these women go to the van to put makeup on in their reflections, and he's like getting a camera out and taking pictures of them. That's really creepy.
That's true. That is
horrible.
True, yeah.
I reckon if Harry wasn't in the van at the time, I think some flies would have been unzipped at that point. To be honest with you, with Alfredo and Stan, I'm not sure. So sexual deviant, big tick for Stan now as well. Yeah,
there you go.
That's not normal behavior, but so they purposely made his clothes on Harry.
Yeah, like he's always wearing this kind of like weird raincoat or something. He just looks real droopy and looking attire.
He does give you sort of miserable middle-aged man. His life's just got away from him. Just like
and then also, so then he has that one, even to add how pathetic he is. God, he has that one moment of smug arrogance, like you were talking about, where he's like thinks he's hot shit and then immediately is taken down.
Yeah, because he's like smiling. He's like, "This is how we did it when we did this, isn't it amazing?" And the guy's like, "We should work together," and he's like laughing in the guy's face while saying, "We should work together." Like, I wouldn't work with you, you know. And then he won't show
make
him
all my own stuff. Yeah.
And poor Harry, the guy, just like, "Hey, guess what, everyone? I've record." And I knew in the film, did you pick up on that? As soon as he put the pen in his pocket, I was like, "Come on, Harry." Come on, Harry. Come on. Not so good, Harry. So yeah.
Well, that's the smug arrogance coup, because he didn't even expect it. He thinks he's the best. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I could never fall for this. So this guy could never even pull that off. So this must just be a pen. Yeah. And that's another interesting point, is that guy will have heard the conversation with Harrison Ford then, which means that he'll know on tape stuff. Yeah, so that's interesting. That's why I felt he was going to come back into it at one point.
That is interesting.
Yeah. But so maybe if I watch it again, I'll see more to that guy than meets the eye. But
or even adding to that, the fact that he didn't play that part, or that it's not referenced, could also add to the idea that he wasn't there, and Harry is just super paranoid that he never had that conversation.
That poor party it was just him and Stan having a drink, and Stan was having a good night riding his scooter, and Harry was just off imagining everyone. Manipulation. Yeah, I think he manipulates people in the film in his own way, doesn't he? Yeah,
his he's just invading people's privacies, and like even like the way he goes to the hotel room, and like he's trying to still get one up on the director. Like, well, even if he does murder them, I'll have it on tape, or I'll record it or something. So he's trying his best. I don't know if he's very good at it.
Did you think as well in the sexual deviancy that I kind of got a vibe that part of this was because it was a woman that he thought was going to get hurt, was why he got so obsessed. But it was an attractive woman, and I felt, because it kept showing her face, and I kept feeling like, is he kind of supposed to be more? He's if it was just two guys talking, would he have been worried about him being killed as much?
Yeah.
Would he have cared? A bit of sort of a hero complex, perhaps, with Harry, or but yeah, she was attractive, but she wasn't quite what she seemed, Harry.
In the dream, it's when he has that dream and he's making the confession, it's only her.
Only her, yeah. I actually thought the film at that point was going to go down the road of him being weirdly obsessed and in love with this woman, and that was when he was going to be his own downfall in some weird way. That's where I felt it was going. But like the director was going to kill him because he thought he was going after his woman, and he just completely made his own bed. But yeah, I did feel that vibe. So yeah, sexual deviance all around for everyone in this film.
Yeah, I think Harry definitely hits. I have one more that I would like to propose, and that's Bernie, his rival or whatever. So I think he is pathetic, because he's essentially showing up at Harry's house and he's like begging him to like be partners with him. And I also think he's like a little pathetic too, because it makes it seem like his little like harmonica invention, it seems really like cheesy, or Harry makes it, I don't know anything about Spine, but Harry makes it seem like that's like some bullshit, or like that's really fucking stupid.
Yeah it was pretty stupid pathetic. Though, wasn't it?
Yeah, like blow the harmonica.
Does that even work? And then maybe it does at the end work, but he reminded me of the the desperate car salesman that needs to make that sale that day to pay his rent, or his wife's going to leave him. That kind of vibe. Sweaty, desperate, like napkin on his forehead, like sweating. Sexual deviant, almost certainly. We didn't get any evidence in the film, but if he's not the type of guy that would force himself on a woman that works for him, then I don't know who is. In fact,
the woman he hired. Yeah, exactly.
She is having a historical court case in 30 years' time against him. And then, manipulation. Definitely. He manipulates Harry completely with the pen, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Smug arrogance again. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he does brag about that one job that he did. Like they're like dick measure, and they're like, oh, I did this job. Or so they both,
when he tries to figure out how Harry did that job as well. It's quite funny. Yeah. And he's just like, that's when Harry gets all smug, isn't it? Like, but look and attire, dreadful, absolutely
for sure.
Dreadful.
Yeah. So filled. This movie's filled to the brim. Everybody.
Harrison Ford.
It's the only good-looking one. He's the only one who you can be like, all right, he's pulling off his look and attire.
No one would mind if he was a sexual deviant, would they? In the film, he's fine to be a sexual deviant.
Yeah.
But he ticks all the boxes as well, actually, except patheticness. He's not
Manipulation. He's definitely manipulating. Yeah. Smug arrogance. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone except the poor buddy guy that gets killed.
Yeah. The
Fits all the
director.
bill. Yeah. He's
just
actually the best person in the film. He's the nicest guy. He just loves his wife.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. He's just concerned. And maybe, yeah. He just gets killed. He's just trying to show up and confront her and maybe leave her, or I don't know, fight to get her back. I don't know.
Much like his character in The Godfather, kind of okay, but gets, not spoiler, give any spoiler. Although, come on, spoilers for The Godfather.
He's fine. He lives a long, happy
life, as does everyone else in The Godfather. Family Christmas film, The Godfather.
Exactly. Yes. All right. Well, cool. Thank you so much, Dan, for joining me today. Before we wrap it up, please one more time give everyone some information again on where they can find your podcast, listen to you, find your stuff. Of course, we're going to be tagging you and everything, but just let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, if you're an Arctic Monkeys fan or you want to start a journey, I really love the idea of someone, like you said, coming that hasn't heard of them before even a lot and decide to join us on the discography journey. Come and listen to Don't Believe the Hype, available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and I think Google Podcasts as well, but we get about 2 listeners on that a month, so I don't know if people use that. But you can go to Linktree/Arctic Monkeys podcast to find all the links for that. And then, if you like to laugh, hopefully, and you like your music and find bad lyrics funny, then join us on Liquor and Lyrics and have a drink along with us and have a laugh to us poking fun at some songs. We also did Post Malone, Rockstar, and my personal favorite was Ed Sheeran, Shape of You was one of my favorites.
That was the last one I listened to. Yeah.
I had no idea how bad those lyrics were. So come and join us on that. And again, available on Spotify, Liquor and Lyrics, and same on Apple Podcasts. Go to Linktree/Liquor and Lyrics.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Dan, for joining us, discussing The Conversation and Arctic Monkeys, which I always enjoy.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening. And until next time, don't forget to keep chilling.